The night opened with bright lights, cheerful music, and the soft sound of laughter echoing across the luxury ballroom. The Hale family, one of the richest and most powerful families in the country, stood proudly in the center of the room as guests, reporters, and business partners clapped for them. It was a night they had been waiting for, a night where their long-planned $2.4 billion deal was finally going to be signed. Every corner of the ballroom was decorated with gold and white flowers, crystal chandeliers shone like stars, and the smell of expensive perfume filled the air. People raised their glasses, cameras flashed every few seconds, and every guest acted as if they were witnessing history. The Hale family believed nothing could ever go wrong. They believed their power was unbreakable. Their confidence, their pride, their excitement, they all floated in the air like a glittering cloud. Samantha Hale, the billionaire heiress, walked around with a smile that showed she thought she owned the entire room. Her brother, Adrian Hale, the head of the empire, greeted guests with a calm but proud expression. Everything seemed perfect. Everyone seemed sure that the Hale family was about to become even richer, even stronger, even more respected. But in the middle of all this celebration, the narrator slowly whispered a warning, because something dark was hiding behind the bright lights. Something that no one in the room could see yet. Something that would take only a few minutes to destroy everything this family had built for generations. The guests continued laughing and talking, unaware that the night was about to change forever. The cameras kept clicking, catching every smile and handshake. A group of businessmen stood near the stage, discussing how powerful the Hale empire would become after the deal. People kept praising Samantha's beauty, Adrian's intelligence, and the family's legacy. But somewhere in the crowd, an uneasiness began to grow, almost like a cold shadow moving across warm sunlight. It was small at first, almost invisible, but it was there. The narrator hinted that one tiny moment, one careless action, one spark of arrogance was getting ready to burn down a $2.4 billion future. But for now, the Hale family remained blind to it. They believed everything was in their control. They believed luck was on their side. They believed that tonight was theirs. In a quiet corner of the ballroom, the CEO who would soon change everything, Daniel Reeves, stood silently, observing the room. He was a man built from discipline, hard work, and respect. He did not smile easily. He did not show off. He wasn't born into luxury like the Hale family, he created his own path. His company was the key to the $2.4 billion deal, and without him, the Hale empire had no future in the new industry they were trying to enter. Yet he stood alone, calm and serious, while the Hale family bathed in attention. Many guests whispered his name and pointed at him, saying he was the rising star of the business world. Samantha saw this too, and a faint irritation crossed her face. She didn't like that someone else was getting attention on her night. She didn't like the calm, strong presence Daniel carried. She didn't like how people respected him not for money, but for character. Her pride didn't accept that someone like him stood at the same level as her family. But the night continued, and she kept smiling, though her eyes were sharp and restless. As the music played softly, Adrian raised a glass and announced that the signing ceremony would begin soon. The crowd cheered loudly. People clapped, laughed, and turned their cameras toward the stage. The family walked forward proudly, ready to show the world their biggest victory. But the narrator's voice returned, this time heavier, colder, almost like a warning from the future. They believed they were unstoppable, but they did not know how fast an empire can fall. He paused, letting the suspense fill the room. And tonight, one small act, one emotional mistake, will break their fortune. The celebration continued, but the tone felt different now. A quiet tension began to build, hiding beneath the smiles. The Hale family stood together, shining under the chandelier light, believing everything was under control. But something invisible had already started moving toward them, something that would shatter their pride, their confidence, and their billion-dollar dreams. The narrator whispered again, in moments, the world will see how one careless act can destroy a legacy, and how fast a $2.4 billion empire can crumble. The music continued, the cameras flashed, the crowd cheered, but the storm was already forming. And no one, not the guests, not the reporters, not even the Hale family, had any idea that the night of their greatest victory was also the night their downfall began. Behind all the shining lights and celebration, the truth of the Hale family was much deeper than what the world saw on the outside. While people admired their power and money, they never knew the cracks hidden inside the golden walls. The Hale empire had stood strong for 3 generations. Their businesses controlled everything from luxury hotels to global shipping lines. Wherever they went, people respected them. Wherever they spoke, people listened. But wealth that comes too easily can sometimes create pride that blinds the heart. And that pride lived strongest in Samantha Hale, the billionaire heiress. She grew up in a world where everything was handed to her before she even asked. Private jets, designer clothes, personal assistants, expensive vacations, everything was normal to her. And because everything was so easy, she never learned how to handle disappointment, discipline, or respect. She loved attention, she loved control, and she loved feeling superior. Most people ignored her rude behavior because her family was powerful. They smiled at her even when she insulted them. They stayed quiet when she hurt their feelings. And slowly, Samantha began to believe she could say or do anything without consequence. Her brother, Adrian Hale, the head of the family empire, was different from her. He was calm, focused, and disciplined. He knew how to run a business, and he understood the value of quiet respect. But even he could never fully control Samantha. He had warned her many times, "Samantha, one day your attitude will bring danger to us." She always responded with a laugh, "Relax, Adrian. We are the Hales. People fear us." That belief, strong and dangerous, had grown inside her for years. And tonight, when the $2.4 billion deal was about to be signed, that belief was at its peak. While the Hale family celebrated, another kind of story stood quietly in the room, the story of Daniel Reeves. Unlike the Hales, Daniel did not come from power. He was not born rich. He did not inherit money. His life began in a small neighborhood, where streetlights flickered and cars struggled to start in the morning. His mother worked 2 jobs, his father drove a taxi at night, and Daniel learned early that life only gives success to people who fight for it. As a child, he would sit beside his mother while she folded clothes late at night. She always told him, "Daniel, money is not everything. Respect is the real wealth. Never let anyone take that from you." Those words stayed in his heart even when he grew older. Daniel studied harder than anyone in his class. He worked on weekends, took internships, and built his reputation step by step. Slowly, the world began to notice him. He created his own company from nothing, and through honesty, hard work, and intelligence, he rose to the top. But even after becoming successful, Daniel never forgot the value of dignity. He treated everyone with kindness, whether they were rich or poor. And people admired him for that. Investors trusted him. Employees respected him. Business partners valued him. That was exactly why Adrian Hale desperately wanted him in the $2.4 billion deal. Daniel's company was the missing piece the Hale empire needed for the future. Without Daniel, the deal couldn't happen. Without Daniel, their next business expansion would collapse before it even started. But Samantha never understood this. She looked at Daniel and saw only a man who did not belong in her world. She didn't see his intelligence or his leadership. She saw only his simple background and calm personality. And this irritated her deeply. She couldn't stand seeing reporters and guests praising him. She didn't like seeing people admire him even more than her. Her jealousy grew quietly like a small fire waiting to spread. The more the evening continued, the more tension floated in the air. Daniel stayed in the corner, silently observing people. He never needed the spotlight. He never fought for attention. But attention came to him naturally, because his presence carried strength without arrogance. Many guests walked up to him, praising him for his achievements, shaking his hand, and taking photos. And every time someone approached Daniel, Samantha watched with a growing sense of anger she couldn't explain. She felt the spotlight leaving her and moving toward him. Adrian sensed the tension. He knew his sister's temper. He knew how quickly she could lose control. He walked toward her and whispered, "Samantha, tonight is important. Please don't cause any trouble." She rolled her eyes and replied, "Adrian, don't worry. I know how to behave." But her voice lacked sincerity. It carried irritation, impatience, and hurt pride. Meanwhile, Daniel continued watching the Hale family from afar. He respected Adrian. He appreciated the opportunity. But something inside him felt uneasy. He noticed Samantha's sharp glances, her restless movements, her forced smile. And even though he didn't know the future, he sensed something dangerous behind those eyes, something that would soon unfold. The narrator returned softly, as if guiding the audience into a deeper truth. 2 worlds stood in the same ballroom, one built by pride, the other built by respect. And tonight, these worlds would collide. As the clock moved closer to the signing moment, everyone believed they were about to witness history. But destiny had already chosen a different path. A single act, still waiting to happen, was about to destroy everything the Hale family believed was safe. And Samantha Hale had no idea that her biggest mistake was just minutes away. The music inside the ballroom grew softer as the night moved toward the biggest moment, the signing of the $2.4 billion deal. Guests gathered near the main stage, waiting eagerly for the Hale family and Daniel Reeves to step forward. Laughter floated across the room, glasses clicked together, and the air shimmered with excitement. But beneath that excitement, a quiet tension sat like a shadow, growing slowly and silently. Samantha Hale stood near the center, her eyes following Daniel as he spoke to a small group of guests. They were smiling, nodding, admiring him. Every compliment he received felt like a small spark irritating Samantha's ego. She tried to smile, but the smile looked sharp, forced, and uncomfortable. Her pride couldn't accept that someone else, especially someone she considered ordinary, was receiving more respect and attention than her. The longer she watched, the angrier she became, though she tried to hide it. She crossed her arms, tapped her foot, and muttered under her breath. Adrian noticed her stiff posture and whispered, "Samantha, please, don't do anything foolish." She didn't look at him. She simply replied, "Relax. I'm fine." But her voice trembled with jealousy. Daniel, unaware of Samantha's growing irritation, continued speaking politely to the guests. One woman praised him for his journey from zero to success. Another man complimented him on his discipline and honesty. Daniel thanked them humbly, as he always did. He was never loud, never arrogant, never dramatic. His calmness was his strength. And strangely, that calmness made Samantha even angrier. She couldn't understand how someone like him could stand so confidently without a famous last name, without generational wealth, without the privileges she had always enjoyed. In her mind, he didn't deserve the admiration he was getting. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. She walked toward Daniel with sharp heels clicking loudly on the marble floor. Guests nearby turned their heads, wondering what she wanted. Samantha placed one hand on her hip and said loudly, "So, Daniel, enjoying the attention?" Everyone stopped talking. The sudden coldness in her voice surprised them. Daniel remained calm and replied gently, "Just speaking to your guests. They're very kind." His politeness made her even more irritated. Samantha gave a fake smile and said, "Of course they're kind. They know how to respect successful families." Her words were pointed, sharp, and filled with hidden insult. The guests exchanged worried glances. Daniel understood what she meant, but chose to stay respectful. "Every person here built their success," he said quietly. "Respect is something earned, not bought." Samantha's face tightened. She wasn't used to people talking back to her. Her pride felt attacked, even though Daniel's words were calm. The room grew quieter as more guests noticed the tension. Daniel tried to end the conversation by stepping away politely. But Samantha took a step closer, refusing to let him leave. She wanted to embarrass him. She wanted to show that she was in control. She raised her voice slightly and said, "You talk like you're better than us, Daniel. Don't forget who is giving you this opportunity." The insult was clear. The room froze. The music softened. People stared at Samantha, shocked by her disrespect. Adrian's eyes widened as he rushed forward, whispering urgently, "Samantha, stop this now." But she ignored him. Daniel took a slow breath. He wasn't angry, just disappointed. His face stayed calm, but his silence carried strength. He replied softly, "Respect goes both ways, Samantha." His voice wasn't raised, yet it felt heavy, powerful, and honest. And that honesty broke something inside Samantha. She felt embarrassed, but instead of admitting it, she became furious. Her pride had been touched, and she couldn't control her reaction. Then came the moment that changed everything. Samantha looked at the wine glass in her hand, full of red liquid. Her fingers tightened around it. And in a sudden burst of emotion, she raised the glass and threw the wine straight at Daniel. The red liquid splashed across his face, staining his shirt, dripping down onto the marble floor. The sound of the splash echoed louder than the music. Guests gasped. A woman covered her mouth. A man stepped back in shock. Even the waiters froze in place. The entire ballroom fell silent. The chandeliers sparkled above them, but the room felt dark, heavy, and cold. Daniel stood completely still. The wine rolled down his face, but he didn't wipe it immediately. He simply looked at Samantha, not with anger, but with deep disappointment. That expression hit her harder than any shout would have. Her smile faded. Her hands began to shake. She finally realized she had crossed a line she could never undo. Adrian grabbed her arm and whispered sharply, "What have you done?" But Samantha couldn't speak. Her pride had blinded her, and now her mistake filled the entire room like smoke. Daniel slowly reached for a napkin and gently cleaned his face. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't insult her. He didn't react with anger. Instead, he said only 4 calm words, "The deal is over." And then he walked away. His footsteps echoed across the silent ballroom. Every guest watched him leave, knowing something massive had just shattered, something far bigger than the glass of wine. Samantha stood frozen, her heart racing, her mind spinning. She wanted to call him back, but her voice refused to come out. She only whispered, "I didn't mean," but it was too late. Much too late. The narrator returned with a cold truth. She threw a glass of wine, but she didn't know she had also thrown away her family's future. And as Daniel disappeared through the doors, a $2.4 billion empire began to collapse, quietly, silently, but without mercy. The moment Daniel Reeves walked out of the ballroom, the entire atmosphere changed. It felt as if the air had turned colder, heavier, and darker. The music was still playing softly, but no one was listening anymore. Guests stood frozen like statues, whispering nervously to one another. Samantha Hale remained in the center of the room, her hand still trembling, the empty wine glass slipping from her fingers and hitting the floor with a dull sound. She couldn't understand what she had just done. She couldn't understand why her chest suddenly felt tight, why her throat felt dry, why every pair of eyes in the room felt like judgment. Adrian Hale stood beside her, his face pale, his jaw tight with fear and anger. For the first time in his life, he felt something he had never felt before: panic. He had always believed he could fix any problem, control any situation, protect his family from any danger. But this time, he knew something had gone terribly wrong. Something he couldn't repair with apologies or money. Outside the ballroom, Daniel walked down the long hallway without wiping the last drops of wine from his face. His steps were steady, calm, and firm. But inside his silence, a decision had already been made. He pulled out his phone and sent a short message to his legal team: "Terminate all negotiations immediately. No further communication." His lawyers responded within seconds, shocked but obedient. They knew Daniel never made emotional decisions. If he ended the deal, something serious must have happened. And once Daniel made a decision, he did not take it back. Inside the ballroom, Adrian hurried after him, trying to catch up. But by the time he reached the hallway, Daniel was already gone. The car waiting at the entrance drove him away silently, leaving behind a building full of confused and frightened people. Adrian ran a hand through his hair, breathing heavily. He knew the moment he feared had begun. Their entire empire depended on that deal. Without it, their future plans, their expansion projects, their investors, all of it would crumble. He walked back into the ballroom and saw dozens of guests staring at Samantha with disappointment, shock, or disgust. She tried to speak, tried to explain, but her voice came out small, weak, nothing like the confident heiress she had always been. I didn't mean to," she whispered, but no one believed her. The collapse began quietly, like a soft wind before a storm. A few investors stepped aside and made phone calls with serious expressions. A business partner shook his head and whispered, "This is bad." A reporter near the corner typed rapidly on her phone, her eyes wide with excitement. She had just witnessed something that would soon become breaking news. Adrian grabbed Samantha's arm and pulled her into a private corner. His voice was low but sharp. "Do you understand what you've done?" Samantha looked at him with red eyes, her voice shaking. "I didn't plan it. I was just angry. I didn't think," Adrian cut her off. "Exactly. You didn't think. And now the deal is gone." Samantha felt her body weaken. She leaned against the wall, as if her legs couldn't carry her weight anymore. For the first time in her life, she felt small, helpless, terrified. Minutes later, Adrian's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, and his heart dropped. It was an official email from Daniel's legal team. The $2.4 billion deal was officially cancelled. Effective immediately. The words felt like knives. His breathing grew heavier. Samantha watched his face turn even paler. "What does it say?" she asked with trembling lips. Adrian turned the screen toward her. She covered her mouth with her hands, gasping softly. Tears built in her eyes, but they couldn't fall. She felt frozen in guilt. The deal was gone. A deal that took years to plan. A deal that would shape their future. A deal that would protect their empire for generations. All gone in minutes. Gone because of one impulsive act. But the worst part hadn't even started yet. Outside the ballroom, reporters began posting updates on social media. Within minutes, the news spread across the internet. Billionaire heiress throws wine at CEO, $2.4 billion deal falls apart. Hale family facing crisis after public incident. Daniel Reeves walks out, market reacts immediately. By the time the Hale family left the event, the damage had already begun moving like wildfire. Their company's stock started dropping. Investors began pulling out. Banks started demanding explanations. Their PR team called non-stop, their voices filled with urgency and fear. Adrian felt the weight of the world crushing him. Everything he built, everything his father and grandfather built, was now shaking like a weak foundation. All because of a moment that lasted only a few seconds. Samantha sat silently in the back of the car, staring at her reflection in the window. She didn't recognize herself. She didn't see a powerful heiress anymore. She saw a scared young woman who had ruined something she could never fix. She wanted to cry, scream, apologize, but none of it mattered anymore. No apology could repair the damage. No words could bring back the deal. Her mistake was no longer a private embarrassment, it had become a national scandal. As the car drove toward their mansion, Adrian received another message. This time, from one of their biggest investors. The message said, "We are withdrawing immediately. We no longer have confidence in your leadership." Adrian closed his eyes in pain. Samantha whispered, "Is it my fault?" He didn't answer. His silence was louder than any words. The narrator returned, heavy with truth. There are moments in life when everything changes in one breath. And tonight, their empire didn't fall with noise, it fell in silence. The Hale family had not yet seen the full destruction. The collapse had only just begun. The Hale mansion, usually glowing with bright lights and loud laughter, felt cold and silent when the family arrived home. The guards opened the large iron gates, but even they could feel something heavy in the air, something dark and frightening. Adrian Hale stepped out of the car first, his shoulders tense, his face empty of emotion. Samantha followed slowly, her steps unsteady, her eyes swollen from holding back tears. She felt as if every corner of the world was blaming her, watching her, judging her. The mansion's huge doors closed behind them, and the sound echoed like a warning. Inside, their phones kept buzzing non-stop, calls from banks, messages from partners, alerts from the media. The collapse was no longer a fear. It had already started. Adrian walked straight to his office without speaking to anyone. Samantha stood alone in the hallway, her hands shaking as she checked her phone. Every headline felt like a knife. Heiress ruins multi-billion deal. Hale family in crisis. Market confidence drops. She dropped the phone on the floor and covered her face. She finally broke down and cried quietly, her voice lost in the emptiness of the mansion. Meanwhile, Adrian's office was filled with screens, each one showing something worse than the last. Their company's stock was falling faster than he had ever seen in his life. Investors were leaving one after another. The company group chat was filled with panic. Their loyal board members were demanding an emergency meeting. Adrian ran a trembling hand across his face. He had spent years building this empire, and in one night, it was collapsing like a house made of paper. His assistant called. "Sir, the press is waiting outside the mansion. They want a statement." Adrian whispered, "No statements. Not tonight." He ended the call and stared at his reflection in the window. He looked older, weaker, defeated. This was not the man he used to be. In another part of the house, Samantha sat on her bedroom floor, hugging her knees. She replayed the moment again and again, the wine glass, Daniel's face, the silence that followed, her own anger, her mistake. She wished she could go back in time. She wished she could erase everything. She whispered, "Why did I do that? Why didn't I stop?" But there was no answer. Only guilt. Heavy, choking guilt. She imagined the workers who might lose their jobs, the families depending on the company, her father's legacy disappearing, and her brother's dreams burning. She cried harder, her voice cracking. For the first time in her life, she realized the true meaning of consequences. The night grew deeper. The phones kept ringing. The world outside kept spinning. But inside the mansion, everything felt frozen. Finally, after hours of silence, Adrian came to Samantha's room. He knocked softly before entering. She looked up at him with red, hopeless eyes. He stood still for a moment, as if trying to gather his strength. Then he spoke, his voice low and tired. "Samantha, the deal is over. There is no coming back." She lowered her head. "I know." He continued, "Tomorrow, we have to face the board. We have to answer to the world. And they will want someone to blame." The words sent a chill down her spine. She whispered, "Blame me. It was my mistake." Adrian didn't answer immediately. He sat beside her. "You are my sister. I don't want to sacrifice you. But the world is not kind. They will not forgive easily. They will want punishment. They will want blood." Samantha's lips trembled. "Are we going to lose everything?" Adrian closed his eyes. "I don't know. Maybe." At that exact moment, an email notification rang from Adrian's phone. He opened it slowly, already afraid of what it might say. It was from Daniel Reeves, the man who had walked away in silence, the man whose expression had told the future. The email was short, simple, and cold. "Adrian, I did not end the deal because of the wine. I ended the deal because of the disrespect. A partnership cannot survive without honor." Adrian read the message twice, then handed the phone to Samantha. Her hands shook as she read it. Her heart felt heavier than before. This was not just about a glass of wine. This was about character, pride, values, the things she had forgotten in her moment of anger. She whispered, "He is right." Adrian sighed deeply. "Yes. And the world knows it too." The night slowly turned into dawn. But the morning did not bring peace. Instead, more disaster arrived. The Hale family woke up to see their company drop to its lowest value in 10 years. 3 investors filed legal notices. News channels camped outside their gates. The board demanded Samantha step down from her public role. Everything was falling apart, piece by piece. During breakfast, no one spoke. No one even touched their food. Samantha sat quietly, staring at her trembling hands. Adrian watched her for a long moment. Then he finally said, "There is only one way we survive this. We have to show the world that we accept responsibility. We have to face this storm honestly." Samantha nodded. "I will do it. Whatever it takes." She looked up at him with tired but determined eyes. "I will not run away." And so, the heiress who had once stood proudly above everyone now walked toward her greatest challenge with her head lowered but her heart ready to change. She had made a mistake that cost billions. But she was about to learn a lesson worth even more. The narrator ended softly. "Empires fall not in war, but in moments. And sometimes, the greatest rebuilding begins after the deepest fall."